I'm off to Europe. Yes, I will be going to Tbilisi in,
Yeah.
now I can say it very easily, Tbilisi in Georgia and Yerevan in Armenia. Close the door here for a moment. And yeah, next week I'm leaving. That's so exciting. And there's so much history over there. Um, I've been reading up on what's happening to Georgia and the Caucasus region, and it's just on and on and on. So many levels
Yeah.
of learning stuff. So I'm very curious to what I'm gonna be able to give while I'm there and the people I'm gonna be listening and discovering.
Mhm.
So yeah, and also today is a question and answers. It's like Tochino has warned me, no seriousness today, least seriousness today. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, let's just have a nice chat.
Yeah.
Um,
No lectures, no complaining, if any sadness arrives, then it's most welcome, but still, like, let's have the Q&A kind of style conversation. Why not? Um,
mhm.
it's when you told me that you're going to Georgia, I was asking you whereabout, because we know, like, Georgia, it could mean not only Europe, it could mean at least one other place on earth as we know of. And why that particular area? Why, did you choose it, or they invited you? How did that happen?
It's like an invitation. I like the way you say it. When I do on go on these trips, for now, always join Patch Adams' team.
Yeah.
So where Patch Adams teams are going, then I say, okay, I'll join as a volunteer. So I'm discovering parts of the world that I would not have thought of before. I
Yeah.
went to Morocco a few last year. I ended up in Guatemala, in Peru. It's a way, we all have, oh, I'm getting serious here, our limits or, the boundaries of what we know. Let's don't call them limits. Let's just call it, our usual day-to-day life and stuff. And then when there's these trips, so it's Georgia and Armenia. And of course, the last decade or more, what we've heard about Russia and
Yeah.
Ukraine and being a very difficult environment of where there's a lot of hardships. It's not the only place in the world, but it's one place that, we keep hearing in the news. Then to say that I'm going in that part of the world to give love and to give care is also to bring hope. That whatever life circumstances or environment or politics, I'm not about politics. I'm about the politics of love. Let's put it this way. The politics of
Tricky topic,
forgiveness.
is it? Politics of love.
The politics of love, the politics of forgiveness, the politics of being empowered, as an
Mm.
individual. Uh, you always talk about the grain of salt that comes into the cogs of wheels of society and makes things difficult. Well, I'm a drop of oil, you know, of greasing oil. Let's say, okay, well, let's be friends. Let's think about what happened to us and let's move beyond that. Is that possible?
Yeah, that's a good question. Is it possible to move beyond? Because when you speak about current situation, we have spoken it quite a lot actually in the recent year, that our origins do affect us, where we
Mhm.
come from. And as most listeners would probably know by now, that I come from the era where, like, the era, it's another era, I would say. Yeah, it sounds awful that it's that, like, minimal time makes a whole era up, in our minds, because it was completely different way how humans approached life in the country that I was born, which actually you couldn't really say that it's separate country at the time, and I'm speaking about Soviet Union at the minute, and how it did affect people. And still, like, I'm not fluent in Russian language. I still understand it, like fluently. Like I would be quite on a good side, like of understanding the language, but I don't feel comfortable. Like even like, and I'm pretty inclusive type of person. You know, I wouldn't be kind of judging by the language or anything, but it does make you think what areas, how they affect people and how they affect, like you work a lot with kids and how the circumstances and the mind shaping, how that affects little people, because they're easy to impress with whatever comes up, you know. And so probably the next question would be, as you work with the kids all the time, grown-up kids and little kids, how do you see like those children who have suffered a lot? How is it for them to switch off? Because in order to get ready for our conversation, I did read up a little. I put it aside now, the paperwork, but I read up a little. Oh, no, I didn't. About PTSD and all that, like post-traumatic stress. And because I did attend some lectures in 2022 just to kind of make myself more informed, like on a chemical level, what happens in the brain. And I just read it once again, and it's like we don't choose for trauma to kind of linger around, but hypothalamus and amygdala, it kind of doesn't ask our permission. So my question for you would be, of course you've studied this and you know all the like background as well. How do you see that stress and the result of the stress that they couldn't avoid and no one was there to help them, how it changes when they meet you or similar people like you? Like your experience. I'm not interested in theory. I'm interested like
Yes,
what do
yes,
you
yes.
see in your work?
Well, what I see is that uh, trauma creates protection, a feeling of wanting to protect. So
Yeah,
the person is closed up, and I'm talking about not necessarily. I can talk about concrete experience of people I've met, children I've met with, but I'm also talking about my reflecting on
yeah,
my own,
yeah,
my own story of
yeah,
abuse and healing from abuse. And it takes time is something essential. So, like you were talking about a chemical in the brain and stuff like that, but a chemical reaction happens in time,
yeah,
over a time period. So it's the same thing with the chemical reaction in our body. So, as a person who had PTSD, let's put it just simple as that. To survive, I had to close myself up. Now, do does my beingness, does my spirit enjoy this state? It doesn't,
mm,
but it's in a survival mode. So as long as I'm in an environment that I need to protect myself, I'll never open my shell up. So I'm keeping all these chemical processes happening because I still need to protect myself. I still
yeah,
need my security. So when we come into their space, so a concrete example, um, in Russia, in the hospital in Moscow, in the neurological department, um, we went. So we went a group of clown on that floor, and some kids would participate, some kids would run around. After a while, I wandered to see in the other rooms. And then in one room, I saw a kid just hunched over on his bed, not moving. So you would call it a catatonic
Yeah.
state, a state of unresponsiveness, um, totally closed off, totally not participating. And so as a clown, the way we function, so I see him and I knock on the door, the open door, and I just kind of say hello, and we look for invitations. We never impose.
Yeah.
It's a line. It's a fragile line. So um, he didn't react like pushing me away. So I took that as an invitation. Okay. So basically, inch by inch or centimeters by centimeter, I had my ukulele, you know, uh, and I just strummed a bit. Okay. By then, I was just keeping him company, still not reacting. Then I took my ukulele and I put it beside him, and then I strummed just a few chords. Barely a reaction, but and then as I saw, he wasn't pushing me away. I mean, that's a good sign. Then I just took the ukulele and put it on his lap, just under, like, since he was fixating the bed, I just put it under his vision. And then I just plucked a few chords one by one. And then at one point, I'm getting emotional about this.
You're allowed to be emotional.
I
It's a
mean,
safe space.
he he just started to move his hands, and then he started to just one chord, and then the other chord, and then after a minute of this, he actually picked it up, and then he played it like one of those little African things with ting 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 ting,
Kalimba, I think. Yeah.
and like for 20 minutes, he just went on and then just melodic, just like. And when I first went into the room, I felt like his eyes was like totally black from sleepless night and nightmares. And as he played, suddenly he lit up. And then the other clowns came and told me that we had to go because the visit was over. And it's like, so I kind of gently asked him, I said, I have to go. Even if I don't speak Russian, it's like, and he just kind of get up a bit up, smile, and then he gave it back to me smiling. It's like,
Was it a hospital, sorry, or a boarding school, or what kind of
hospital.
institute?
It was,
Hospital.
if I remember, one of the bigger hospital in Russia, in
Yeah.
Moscow, sorry.
Yeah.
And so what I've learned, like, don't give up. That's the first thing. The
Yeah.
people are not reacting. The people are, of course, never put yourself in a situation of danger as a clown, as a human being. Simple. I always do this with as an invitation. Uh, I'm doing improv these days, and there's another rule I've learned. I'm a very open. I think last time we talked about this open physical person. I can give hugs easily. We talk about this, and you said, well, Guy, I'm not a huggy person, which is fine,
Yeah.
Um, so in improv, it's amazing that people who do improv theater are from so many different backgrounds. Uh, some are very shy, some are very expressive, some are very stoic. It's just all women, man, young, old, it's totally mixed. And out of this group, it's some people are just normal, meaning they don't like to touch people or to be touched. That's in the coding of our American society. I don't know about Europe, but American society, we don't touch people. And so I've learned that the best way to interact, to do improvisation in that situation is to apply the 80-20% rule.
Oh
80%,
yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
So basically, I come, I offer, I open my arms, my hands in a non-threatening situation, but the last step of touching is the 20%, is the other person,
Yeah.
their choice. So I offer, I'm open, I'm giving an occasion. So with this young child, maybe he was 10 years old, Peter. Um, each step, I'm very careful. I knock on the door, he's not pushing me. I play ukulele, so each time he's not pushing me away. If I wasn't there for my own personal needs, oh, love me, oh, look at me, oh, I'm a clown, laugh at me.
This was actually one of the first things when we started to speak. Actually, when you introduced yourself to me the first time when we spoke, I
Mhm.
was like, clowning? No, like, no. Because my association was, I think I told you I volunteered for UNICEF like years
Okay.
back when I was in university, when I was like 19, 18, 19, something. And they were okay. They did. I saw clowns in action, but they had this aspect of like misjudging the situation. They were more like, of course, mostly kids are those extroverted little human beings who want to go, and play and laugh and have fun. But there's some kids who are like from very beginning of their lives, they don't go into that type of communication at all. But that doesn't mean they don't need a human
Mhm.
experience, the warmth,
Mhm.
or um, we can't really call it a conversation, but just the presence. So yeah, that was I remember my sense, like my feeling, how I was like feeling towards you when you said what you do in life. It's like, no, but then you explained, and you not only explained, you showed. I'm talking about the Irish Writers Union, the event.
Yeah.
You kind of, you were very expressive, but in the same time observant. You kept the space available for people, and not only like me or other people who you kind of knew, but for everyone. And if you saw any sign that they're on the same energetic level like you, there's like little explosion. Yeah, but if not, then you would accommodate them, which is really an excellent skill to have in these days, especially if you want to serve as a medium in difficult situations. As a like we have many little Russian kids in Latvia as well, sick in hospitals and all that, and I don't know how they feel now because of the war and how the parents are probably treated, even if they are fluent in Latvian and they live in Latvia, but their mother tongue is Russian and they have probably Latvian passports, but they still live in Latvia, as many families. So I cannot even imagine what that little heart feels when they're like sick in a hospital and there's only Latvian doctors speaking in Latvian, and or reverse. Maybe there are some Latvian kids in Russia in a hospital at the minute, and they're treated not as nice because that's just little neighboring country who is just expressing themselves in the world at the minute. So it's, yeah, I just
Yeah.
wanted to mention that whatever you do, it's like it seems that you're one of the people who actually, let's put it straight, you read the room. that's
Yeah.
that's really important now, like physically, like sensing what's going on in the room. And is that empathy? What do you think? Like, or it's learned skill, or what is it for you?
It's a learned skill. It's
Okay.
a learned skill. You could say it's like playing the piano or whatnot. I mean, some people are born with that skill. Some people had how could I say, an upbringing or in an environment or a
Yeah.
room, call it this way, a
Room.
room
Yeah.
which was helpful in developing that quality. Um, it can be developed. Let's just put it this way. Compassion or forgiveness, maybe another example of forgiveness. He's checking on me. So are you gonna get serious now, Yi?
You're already
I mean,
serious, so there's no chance you're getting out of the mood.
uh, consciousness or compassion or forgiveness is like the little birdie in the nest that the mother has to push out of the nest
Mm.
because he's afraid to fly with his own wings. Um, you don't know how natural forgiveness is until you are pushed to do it.
I'll repeat that again because I think that's simple but really complicated somehow.
we, we don't know how natural it is to forgive. It takes more energy to be anger, to hold on. It takes more time, passion to hate someone. It's going to occupy much of your energy than to actually just forgive. And again, an important part of forgiveness doesn't mean you agree with what has been done. That's
That's
something,
another important aspect, yeah.
yeah, that's something totally different. So to mention about uh, our human nature, no. For me, forgiveness is part of our makeup, of our human nature. Pain is comes up from not forgiving. Why
Mm.
is forgiving painful? Is because you release the pain. It's simple. As long as you don't forgive, you keep inside the hurt that has been done to you. So you keep hurting. It's simple. When you
I'm just
forgive,
on whatever you say, I'm on continuous base. I'm kind of repeating what I read
yes,
in get ready. And there
okay.
is one aspect, and if you could dive into it, like when you're traumatized, it said, I'm not gonna quote what page, but basically, if you're traumatized in any way, you you lose the ability to be able to kind of write down your history. You lose, you have trouble memorizing stuff and all that. Could you, probably from your experience or probably from what you've seen in your life, how does that go together with not forgiving? Like, probably you're, chemically speaking, you're under constant stress because the chemical reactions, they don't do what they're supposed to do
Mhm.
in your
Mhm.
brain.
Yeah.
So if you don't understand what's happening, if you're kind of angry but not angry, confused basically, but then you're in a state of stress and you probably don't even know, do I have to forgive?
Mhm.
Would you forgive just in case? Even if you don't know what you are forgiven and who you are forgiven, like, uh, just touch upon this. I think it will
Mhm.
beautifully blend in what you just
I'll,
said.
I'll bring in a new word which might help. It's integrating,
Yeah,
integration. PTSD, we all have these catchwords. PTSD, before maybe it was called shell shock uh, in the war, and then the
yeah,
Vietnam War, it was another name. And um, what is a war? They're just okay, a war where they say PTSD from war, from the Vietnam veterans, or shell shock and stuff like that. So even if we don't talk about politics, what is a war is a conflict between two ideas. You know,
Yeah.
A is in conflict with B. This idea of conflict is, you could say, is the same as a large scale as in the microscopic scale of chemistry in our brain. There's a conflict happening and it's not resolving. The chemical reaction is not happening. There's no integration. So they say, okay, something very concrete. Until I find out that I was sexually abused as a child, I had lots of behaviors of protection.
What do you
Shame.
mean until you find out? You didn't know? Just for listeners who don't know
Yeah,
any of history, you forgot, you were too small, you just didn't know.
it's all of these things, but basically, it's only at the age of 30 that the first memories came back. To
So for listeners, it is possible. Yeah. It's a real story. There is a human being telling you this story at the minute. Yes. Yeah. It is
that's
possible not to remember. Yep.
yeah, yeah. And then so to be specific about my story, it's called theory, sorry, dissociation. That's just to
Yeah.
use that word. So the opposite of dissociating, when you separate yourself, when you cut yourself in half, is integration. So integration is putting all those pieces back together. So because of my, no, not because, taking in consideration the abuse I lived, the sexual abuse, and there's a family environment which was not conclusive to integration. So being sexually abused or going through a trauma doesn't mean that you're going to live dissociation. These are different things. If a child or a person goes through at war with his environment, let's use that word,
Yeah.
being raped is that. I was raped means I was at war
With environment, yeah.
with my environment. Somebody forced itself, a woman, a man, forced themselves on me. So there was a war going on there. Okay, so the conflict, after the conflict was over, after the abuse, the rape was done, you could say, had I been in an environment with people, with a family that would practice integration, then the trauma would have been solved
Mm.
right away. So it's never the thing in itself. The thing in itself is an occasion, is a situation for a trauma to take place. But the trauma can be dissolved in a good environment.
Yeah, if you get
So
help. Yeah. Hmm.
if you get help, and again, help is a big word. What does it mean to, I mean, I'm not questioning that word, but as a clown, this is what I do. When I go into a room, I listen, and that's basically, I am conscious of the environment. I am bringing in the room my bubble of listening, my bubble of caring. I am like some people would say, the nose is just a symbol to say I'm a safe person.
Mm.
I am outside of the rules. Of course, it doesn't automatically mean I'm a good, nice person. it's just a
That's the
symbol.
same as a priest wearing
Exactly. Yeah.
particular wear.
Priest, or if you look at all these commercials for medical advice, the actors wear a white robe, with a stethoscope. And it's
Yeah.
like if you won't see a commercial about the doctor playing golf. You say, oh, if you have a headache, research on the golf course. He's not going to talk about pills for headaches
Mm.
on the golf course. So this image. So trauma, not to take things lightly, it's a war. It's a conflict. Now, my belief or my experience, and I may be wrong, but my belief is that we are beings, we are self-healing beings, meaning that to start the healing process, we need to get out of our own way so that the chemicals reaction, like you say, in the brains can take place finally. We are held back. I'm not allowed to scream. I'm not allowed to be angry. Of course, if I scream and I am angry in the middle of the bus or in the middle of the street, in an unsafe environment, that won't work. But if I do that in a safe, listening, loving environment, then it happens by itself. It's another example of clowning and listening. When I was in one of my first clowning trips in Guatemala, we went to a heart surgery hospital for kids. And it was my first clown trip. I was shy, I was inexperienced, but I was open uh, to do, and we do this as a team, So it's not about me. I trust the partners, the other clowns I'm with. So I ended up in one room, and the young girl, maybe of 12, had just had her heart surgery a few weeks ago. So she was recuperating. So the mom was there, the other clown was there. So I sang, I danced, and we did drawings, we did some poetry. You can actually see this on YouTube. I've got that specific segment there. And the energy was so wonderful and loving. The mom came and gave me a big hug afterwards. And it's like, I wasn't doing it for that, but it's just, okay, so at that moment, the energy was so loving and positive, and everything was forgotten. Everything was forgiven. It was about feeling good. So I left that room to go clowning somewhere else to give as much love as possible. And I ended up in the waiting room, where there's rows and rows of chairs and people just waiting. So there was this young girl sitting on the floor, very sad. I sat beside her, and I was all in that energy of being playful. Maybe I had an harmonica, I don't know, but she was not responding. So I felt, oh, I'm not listening. I'm not doing this, is not working. And so I kind of calmed down, and then I just took a balloon and just blew a balloon, and I gave it to her, and then she smiled, and then she kind of leaned against me so I could, just hold her in my arms with the balloon, and I just kind of rocked her. So at that point, I wasn't funny anymore. I wasn't being a clown. I was just giving her comfort. Finally, one of the other clowns came who spoke Spanish, Uh, I asked her what's happening here, why is she like this, or why is she waiting for? And after getting the information, she was telling me that her mother was now seeing the doctor because they were discussing about her, that she was about to go in the hospital to have her surgery.
Mm.
So while the other child was finishing her surgery and
Yeah.
everything was on the upswing, this one, she was totally insecure, totally scared. So she didn't need my energy of happiness. What she needed was this energy of caring, of love. All I needed was to listen to her. So to go back to your specific question about forgiveness, it's about self-healing. That young girl knew what she needed. I didn't. So same thing with the Piotr in the neurological hospital in Russia. Same thing. He knew what he needed. All I needed to do was to create a safe environment, a listening environment. Now, to get serious, and how much time do we give ourselves that?
That was almost my next question, because you keep on talking about safe space, and then I'm thinking for myself, like, what does safe space mean to me? What is it? Like, do I have it? Where I have it? And what if I don't have like outer kind of safe space? Am I able to, am I brave enough to create it inside, you know? So yeah, continue on, because this really kind of resonated with you put it all nicely together for me to come to this question, like what does safe space mean?
Thank you. So, a safe space. So, a safe space is a space where yeah, you feel comfortable, you feel you belong. Um, when we spent years not listening to ourselves, because basically that's what healing is. Healing is just listening to all the process that are going inside us. So it's not going to happen instantaneously. It's a trust relationship.
Yeah.
Again, there's a war. There was a war going inside of us. Again, there was a conflict. The conflict is from not listening to ourselves. So how do I get back my confidence that I will be listening to myself?
Oh, that's a big question, is it?
No. How do I get back the confidence that I will be listening to myself? So that's like little steps. It starts with little steps. If I've never listened to myself for years, and which is what brought up a trauma, which what created unforgiveness, which what makes it difficult, it's not because one day I'm going to say, oh, Guy has told me all I have to do is listen and create a safe space, that it's going to happen. No, no, no. It's not going to happen like that. So little steps. We can visualize a physical space. That's one way to do it. So maybe that's one reason why over the years walking has been so important for me. Walking in nature, sitting in nature. Where I live, I'm very close to a canal, and I often go for walks. I work, and when the weather is not good for this, uh, I go and sit at a cafe at cafes that has big windows.
Mm.
So I'm practically I'm trying to sit outside, inside as much as possible. So one way is like, okay, creating a safe space is like it's a physical space. Uh, if you create it for an hour, half a day, I found that for those who are able, it's not always possible, but if you go on a vacation or just a weekend, there's two attitudes. One attitude is to fill it as much as possible with activities. I'll finally do what I can't do because I've got to take care of the kids, the groceries, and this and that, and I'll go out partying and I'll go out this and that and that. But there's the also attitude, I'll do nothing. I'll plan nothing. Um, I will just be. That's that's even
But that's
harder.
scary stuff because that would mean you would actually have to listen.
It's like I agree with you. So it's like
Yeah.
it's a conscious step by step process.
But you
But
got
it's
me hooked on the safe space thing.
yeah,
It's like it's so vital because in order for us to feel safe when we're kids, it's mostly our parents or people who take care of us. And then
yeah,
we tend to give away the responsibility. Please create that safe space for me. And then the paradox, I think, with grown-ups, traumatized grown-ups, is like eventually we put the responsibility in other people's hands, and we never get the hang of it, and we never really reach that point where we can relax, and we cannot relax because we ask for permission, and we never define who are we asking the permission to, and that's so sad.
so much to unload in what you said, and it is sad. And when you
I'm
it's like,
just saying what you said in different words. I'm sorry.
yeah,
You went, we were about to have a bit easier conversation, but I guess it's not meant to happen here. This is space where we go deep in second. Yeah, yeah,
fine, that's fine, and I like the
yeah.
and actually this week I had not so much a big revelation, but understanding, a deeper understanding of, you know, we've been talking about the head, the heart, the body, the spirit, and the universe. And like I say, I won't go into that theory,
Yeah.
but from there, conscious living of the mind, of the heart, of the body, we're all fine with this. And then the idea is that we are born with this power of consciousness that we use or not. And
Mm.
but there's I call them the five forces, and I've touched about them before, but I'll just not basically there's five powers. There's the power of faith, the power of trust, the power of being powerful to do stuff, the power of passions, and the power of consciousness. Okay. These are our natural states. And what I've discovered this week is that I still don't even know how to put it in a good way, but you know when you say you cannot not think, you cannot not breathe, you cannot not exist, you know, you have to go and kill yourself to not exist, but you cannot not think. We're always thinking. What I figured out this week is that trauma, separation, the war of the two things, you cannot not have faith. You cannot not have trust. You cannot not have power. The thing is that if you're not consciously using your gift, your forces, and here comes the tricky part, then you are unconsciously using your gifts.
Yeah.
I'll say this again, and I'll try to do an example. So if you're not consciously using your faith, your trust in yourself, your power to act, your passions to choose. No, it's liberty. That's liberty. That's the word I was. So it's because it's your passions. It means you have the liberty to choose what you want. It's all synonymous at one point, but it's faith, trust, power, liberty, and consciousness. Now, if you don't choose, if you don't use your forces consciously, you are still using your forces, but with your unconscious goals. So if your unconscious goal, because of a trauma, is to protect yourself, then you will use everything in your power to protect yourself.
Yeah.
You will use your instead of you will trust your mistrust. Instead of trusting your environment or trusting people, your energy of trusting. So trusting, what it means is that you let go and you leave yourself vulnerable to what is happening. There's a force in that. So you will use your force of trust to mistrust people. You will actively mistrust people.
Actively trust.
Yeah, you will act, but that's unconscious. And that's what this week I discovered is that while we're working on regaining our power, regaining our trust, regaining our liberty, for example, if you're not consciously using your power, you will hear people will say, I can't do this. I will die if I don't do this. I will, it's like, it's physically. So number 3, the power of the body is that in this amazing reality, we're giving hands, we're giving sensation so that I pick up my coffee and I can drink coffee and I can pick up my piggy and have fun. And we're endowed. It's a gift of this beautiful body. We have a power to act, to do. It's amazing. This amazing power to build this computer on which I'm speaking of now, and that we're having this amazing conversation. That's the power of the body. The thing is that if you're not consciously using your power, you are still using your power. And then you're going to make statements like, I can't. I will die if I don't get this, if I don't get that.
I could say it in other words, and it's about simple, a bit. I will simplify it. Like,
yeah.
Each person, I'm sure all of us can testify to that. We have certain levels of energy. And where do you put your mind to? Like, of course, you could be living in a dream world or living in a reality, whatever reality means to you, or you could be conscious or unconscious while realizing yourself in this wherever we are now. Like we don't know 100% for sure until we die. What was this for real? And maybe even after that we won't find out.
Yeah.
But the combined kind of knowledge what I get for myself now is that there's certain level of energy that I I could be aware of, and I could choose to invest in something, or I could choose to invest it in a material thing, or I could choose to invest it in like studying something, or I could choose to just lodge or transfer the energy to some other human being. And that sounds like a magical language for those who have no kids or for those who have never suffered, which I doubt that there are people who never suffered, that you could actually, this life energy, it's in a weird way transactional. So if we go back to what you just said, there are many ways how we can see that in practice, like in practical life. You know, in those, as you say, in those 5 levels. But to simplify is like, where is your focus, and are you aware, and for how long can you keep the focus, and who is the keeper of that focus, and yeah. So I'm really happy that you brought it up, and I'm delighted that this conversation has gone that deep again. So yeah.
Being alive is a gift, and the hardest part in our, let's get back to the safe environment. Where are we in an environment that is telling us that it's a gift? Or are we in an environment that has taught us that you must be good to earn the right to enjoy the gift?
Conditional existing.
Conditional. And this environment, of course, it's like, that's why forgiveness is such a heal all. It's the water that dissolves everything. Because you can you can retrace the environment to your parents. Okay. But your parents, their environment was their parents. And their parents' environment was their parents. And as far as I know, to make babies, there's a man and there's a woman so far. So whatever, let's say the man has his own heritage of places and of environment. And the woman has her own environment. So we both come from a chain of safe or not safe environment. Let's to keep it those simple. And then these two come together. What a mess. You
I
know?
was just about to say, like, what an unpredictable mess. What an
Exactly.
unpredictable conditional mess.
Exactly. And that's why, for me, when it took me a while, to create this environment of the road of the head, the heart, the body, the soul, and the universe. And then to find these powers, the faith, the trust, the power, the liberty, and the consciousness. It took me work to get to this, to finally understand that there's no work to have them. It's just our natural state of being. So it took me years to undo the learnings, the environments that told me that, Guy, you must work at having your own rights. You must work at having you don't deserve it.
Oh yeah, that's a big one, yeah.
And that's where number 4, trust, is about that, is about how do we, what is our attitude, you
Mm.
know? Um, and faith is just, that's the easiest and the hardest one at the same time. Faith is that it's a given, it's a gift, it's a buffet. When I go clowning in hospitals, it's, to use a word that you use it, but I forget. It's an interaction. It's an exchange that isn't one.
Mm.
It is, because in this physical plane, the fact that we are incarnated on those 5 levels, we these are the symbols. My body is a symbol. It's a I like Alan Watts. He's my mentor, and I always found challenging his image that you have a river, and in a river you have a whirlpool. This funnel of
Yeah,
water that
yeah.
is there, and because of the way the rocks are disposed, and the current is always the same, it stays there. But the whirlpool, in a sense, it doesn't exist. It's just everything else around it is creating. So, but if you don't understand the mechanics of the fluid mechanics and properties of water and blah, 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 you think, oh, this is a whirlpool. I will pick it up and I'll bring it at home because it's so beautiful. Look, it's magical. And so Alan Watts would say that us human beings, in the stream of times, we are just whirlpool. For a few decades, my atoms, my molecules are forming a ghee.
Mm.
But given, as same as in the stream, if I change the condition and the whirlpool disappears, the same way, after a few decades, my gheeness will disappear. I just exist because the universe exists, but I don't exist at the same time. And that's a hard process to do. So when I'm clowning, when I'm bringing love and joy, I'm bringing my whirlpoolness. It's like, this is the gift I have of being alive. I have this, and it takes faith. So forgiveness, I like, sometimes words have a reason. So forgive, it's 2 words. It's forgive. So life is a given. I am
Mm.
given life. It's amazing. It's like, wow, it's a gift. I am giving life. Now, but what do I do when I have this in my hand? I say, oh, I'm going to put it in my pocket. I'm going to put it in the bank. I'm going to deposit it. It's like, stay away from me. Stay away, this is mine. But the word is forgive. I've got the gift and I give it forward. It's gone from me. The
Mm.
conflict, the only reason why you have conflict is when you keep it on. You're not releasing it. You're not, and when you integrate it, it means you're dissolving it and you're letting it go. The only suffering in life is from holding on. But so when you have 2 countries fighting each other, each of them are holding on to their definition of life, to their definition of what is existent, of their politics. If they dissolved, there's no more conflict.
That's a big question, because if they dissolve, then yeah, it's a topic for another conversation when you come back.
It's yes, and it's basically, it's always the inner conflict.
Yeah, because like our conversation, like this conversation started with the way people see, the way people treat each other in America and Canada, in
Yeah.
Europe and in Russia. What are the differences? And I would say, like, a few hundred of years ago, there was no America as we know it now. There was completely different America. So who brought it there? And are those people who brought, I would say, all colored people to America, are they still the same? Like, and from which areas they came to? And who thought of them that they're more important than others? And what happened? Like, one of your native languages, like, speak English, but you also speak French. And why is that? You know, there's
Yeah.
also history behind it. So it's
It's
like,
it's the mind creating differences. It's the mind
exactly, yeah.
creating stories. And that, as I say, when you're conscious, so that's number one, when you're conscious, that your mind, the purpose of mind is to create stories. Um, I read a cartoon on the newspaper the other day. They say if a folk singer sings about lines drawn that delineate countries, then he's going to sing it about how abstract and it's just poetry and they never existed. But if generals and country president talk about the lines, imaginary lines in the country, they're gonna talk about their honor and their possessions and their culture and this like that. So one way or the other, it's only imaginary lines. There are no real. I'm
We
sorry
could
to.
bring it even more down to earth. Like, let's mention marriage, like what male person would say what marriage means to them and what's their purpose in marriage. Because marriage is institution, like one of the mind games actually.
Yeah.
And what's the woman's role? Because none of them could replace the other, you know. But in the same time, both of their stories are true. So,
It's the thing about it's all the mind creates a story, and
yeah.
this week when what I discovered is that if you don't use your if you're not consciously aware of your power, then instead of seeing your stories as just a story, you're going to see it as a reality. This is the law. This is the rule. This is how it is. This is what a man is. This is what a woman is. This is what a role is. I have no choice. Of course, I'm going to fight. But again,
Yeah.
once you know you're free, you have the liberty to choose what you want. You're no longer, oh, and that's a word we didn't use so far. You're no longer a victim,
Oh, that's a
and
big
that
word.
yeah, that's the we
But we
go.
will need to finish soon because I have another thing coming up, and
Yeah,
um, victim is a nice place to finish off, and I think we could have victim and victimhood and putting ourselves down in daily life. Like that could be our next topic when we meet after you've come back. Because I think you'll have many stories to tell and many examples of how to offer probably a different perspective if you feel like that. So with that said, do you have any last words for this conversation to say before you go?
we started with PTSD and then victim and uh, maybe life is a given. It's a gift. You have the gift of faith, trust, power, liberty, and consciousness, and it's a given. You don't have to do anything, really. That's my faith. It's a given. And with that given, then you forgive. You use your power to forgive. I don't know if it's word of wisdom. Georgia, Armenia, I'm coming. I would love to discover who you are, you people. I love you all. I love you, Zane. Thank you for this. And yeah, see you very soon. Go to my website at follow me on the media to see what's happening to me.
Yeah,
That's all
exactly.
I can say.
And I will wish you many sunny days, which you will definitely have in Europe.